Hi and welcome. And Surbhi, it's so nice to be on the stage with you.
Thank you so much, Rosa. I'm so glad to be here with you as well. And I know we have a great session ahead of us today.
Yes, today we're going to talk about decision making. And I'll share one way I have found to make it just a little bit easier. And as tech professionals, we come across so many questions. And Surbhi, have you felt some of these yourself?
Yeah, as I completely resonate with what the questions that we have on the slide as well. I've definitely felt, do I feel happy in my career? Am I creating enough impact, on the users with the products that I'm creating? I've definitely felt stuck in my career. When I was transitioning from consulting, I was thinking, do I want to transition as an IC or a manager? So definitely have, faced the small or large decisions that are mentioned in this slide as well. What about you, Rosa? And have you faced similar decisions in your career?
Oh, yes, definitely. I can totally remember times when I felt stuck. I didn't know what was next, where I wanted to go or do next. And I also had so much on my plate without a way to prioritize it. And we'd love to hear
Yeah.
in the chat, share a question that you're facing now, a pending decision in your life that you would like just a little bit of help with. And while people add their decisions in the chat, let's talk about how this talk came to be, Surbhi.
Yeah, I remember when I first joined ServiceNow, reaching out to you to learn more about buyer personas. And as part of it, I remember you mentioned about values and how values have driven choices for you. And at that time, I completely resonated because I remember doing a similar values exercise in my last firm and how it had helped me. And we wanted to, I know we decided to take it forward and, do an event together. Do you remember that conversation, Rosa, and how it went to be a Women at Now event at ServiceNow?
Yes, definitely. Kudos to you for creating that workshop. So we offered this to members of the Women at ServiceNow group and really got a lot of great response. So we thought we'd share it more broadly. So hopefully some of you have added in your chat your decisions that you're facing. What I wanted to cover next is the 4 steps that we'll talk about today. First is setting that direction, that endpoint. We call it a compass here today, and it's using your vision, identifying your vision, using that and deriving your values so that you can know if you're on the right track or where you might want to get to. The second is understanding how to identify your values. And we refer to the aspirational self. It's who or what or how do you want to be in this world? The third one is putting the pieces together, aligning your vision, your goals, your values, and being able to check in on how those are progressing toward your vision, as well as using the values to help with decision making. And then the last piece, we know that important work often gets cut off or forgotten in the face of urgent, insistent, small things. And so I'll talk about one way I've found to make this a repeatable and useful practice for myself so that values are at the forefront.
And before we get started, Rosa, how did your journey start as a personal story? Could you share how did you go about identifying your values and share an example of how it helped align some of the decisions in your career and or life choices?
Definitely. And I had gone through values identification exercises before, but if you think back to the end of 2020, I was feeling stuck. And it was at a Women in Product conference that I saw a talk by Lisa Kostova. And so I joined her group coaching program called Career Climb. And there I had a group where I could set my vision and share it, talk about my goals, and then do this values exploration really in that context and with accountability partners. And so one of the things that emerged, and I'll share all of the values that I identified in that exercise and that experience. One that emerged was enriching or enrichment. And for me, that means I want to help others to be the face that I didn't have growing up of a Latina in tech. Coming up in my early career, that just wasn't around me. And so when I realized this was important to me and to my vision for myself, I had to be realistic with how I was actually expressing this. So I looked at my calendar, I looked at who I had those relationships with, and there was an absence. So I went on a little bit of a business development journey, reaching out, cold calling, essentially. Women, Latina women I found who worked in tech, and I found them through work or through my alumni organizations, just because I was misaligned. And so that, I think, was important for me to see how to turn a value in the vision into action.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Rosa. And I know we talked about some of the things about how values are important to us and how values can act as a compass as well. And this takes us into our first segue to the topic. How can we use vision as our starting point to set a compass or a benchmark, before we go and define values that help us define our decision making overall? So how could one go about defining our vision board for themselves, whether it is at the start of the year or whenever they are ready to do it as well? Could you share your experience of defining the vision board yourself as well?
Definitely. And I have a few areas here I've put up. Our life is more than our job. And so there's areas to think about in terms of your family, your finances, your own growth, spiritually, your health, and your impact of those around you. And so I have we have a few photos of vision boards here, and some people do think very visually. For me, what helps is writing things down. And so what I actually did was sit down for 30 minutes on a Saturday, and I time boxed it, and I wrote out mind map, different phrases, a narrative, whatever works to really elicit this vision. And I then did it another 30 minutes the following Saturday. So one thing to stress here is time box it. This is where perfectionists can get in over their heads. It's not the last time you'll name a vision. So find a small chunk of time, do it, and then you'll be surprised at what you come out with.
Yeah, and please share us in the chat. How would you go about answering some of these questions as well? Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? And like how Rosa mentioned, it could be pictures related or words related. Where you see yourself in 3 to 5 years as well. And we can take some of those words and keywords and discuss them in the interactive session as well.
Yes, thanks for mentioning that. We'll have an interactive session, and we'd love to bring those themes into the discussion there with more one-on-one with you. And so then you've got this vision. Now what? And how do you get to the values?
Yeah, and I remember when in my last firm, as part of the leadership development program, we were asked to come up with values that resonate with us, and we were sent with this huge list, right, and of values that are available online, as well as it's there in the resources as well for everyone to. And it's very debating, whether what values are important to me as well, overall as a professional, as a personal human being as well, and where do I see myself in 3 to 5 years. And it's very difficult to choose top 3 or 4 out of a list of 400 or 100 values. And it's like trading and saying, okay, does this resonate more with me, or does this resonate more with me? And I've highlighted in these, we have highlighted in this slide some of the questions you can ask yourself to sort of shortlist those values. Thinking about the moments that you've been happy, whether it was running a half marathon, that made you happy, or reflecting on proud moments where, whether you won a particular competition, or whether, reflecting on satisfying moments or fulfilling moments where you felt like, you really contributed and created an impact, and thinking what values sort of resonated with that moment, and coming up with those 4 or 5 set of values that resonate with you. Rosa,
Yes.
do you remember? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing that I think of this as it's reflection, but it's also gut feeling. And so I'm going to do a little bit of rapid fire with you, Surbhi, on, we know these are all great words. They're all very amazing things to be, but then we have to know for ourselves which ones are more important. So this or that, Surbhi, between growth and achievement, how do you think about which value is more true to you?
Yeah, this is very tricky, right? And growth and achievement are very close to each other. And I'm sure you felt the same way when you came up with your values as well, Rosa. And growth is more important to me than achievement, is because growth to me at least means that, personally growing in an area that I don't know much about and are in alignment to where I want to go, as well as trying to see how can I create more impact through product overall, whether it is, growing the product in the new market, or growing a product to satisfy the needs of a new user segment, or aligning better with the user segment overall. So definitely it gives me more excitement and enthusiasm to be able to, solve that problem the product is solving for more users than achievement does. So definitely this one I would say was an easy pick for growth over achievement, but I can definitely see, some folks picking achievement now and then picking growth later on, like 2 to 3 years down the line, or vice versa. Yeah.
Yes, good. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for being part of the rapid fire. Um,
And back to you, I remember that I know what your pick is, but if you had to pick a value between versus experimentation versus adventure, which one resonates most with you? I already know the answer, but I will let you share the experience with the audience so that they can, when they're debating, they can understand the rationale as well.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. And when I think about, for me, what emerged from it with experimentation is that learning, and the learning that comes from imagining one scenario, trying something out, and then learning from it. For me, adventure conjures up maybe a lot of unknown, and maybe more than unknown than I'm willing to go. So experimentation and learning kind of trumps out adventure for me.
Oh, awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing. And experimentation is really cool. I'm sure a lot of people, product people, resonate with that.
That's right, right. Naturals. And I also, what I want to share with with you and the others is the list of values that you talk about. It can be a very long list. I think I have some old lists of values that run over 408 words. And again, this is where it's a combination of reflection, stack ranking, following your gut, seeing what really jumps out at you as your aspirational self. So in the chat, if you don't mind, please share which top two values resonate with you, knowing that you're not being held to them and you can change them later. I think that gut reaction is super important to listen to.
Okay.
And then the third piece we're talking about is aligning your decisions to your values. And what I suggest is starting with learning the muscle to recognize when there's a decision that may or may not challenge your values. And for example, some of the things we talked about at the beginning on new job, potentially a new relationship, an opportunity to move or to volunteer or to do something that's new to you. And so I like to think about making decisions with 3 steps. First, be clear about the decision that's on the table. I say this because sometimes when I might mentor someone and they'll say, well, I don't know if I want to work at that company. And I'll say, well, they are not offering you a job yet. So you really don't have that decision in front of you. So, I mean, I'm making a little bit light of it, but be clear about the decision and what the options might be. Second, what are you solving for in your life? Is what's important to you? Again, as a product manager, right? What are the prioritization frameworks that you're using for your own life decisions? And are you clear about them and evolve them if they don't suit you anymore? And then the third one is then think about your values and how test them, to how apply it to the question, see what feels right or not aligned. That's a good kind of time to reflect and listen to your gut.
Yes, and based on what you described as the decision-making process, I wanted to take you into the rapid fire now and switch hats. And before
Fine.
that, I know you've worked in a startup before, and if there are a lot of people in the audience, I'm sure, who have debated in the past or are debating, whether joining a startup versus a big company or advancing in the current area. When you had to make the decision, whether joining the startup in a new field or advancing to the next level in your current area, how did you go about making that decision?
Yeah, and the situation was that very thing is something new within a smaller company, ability to learn versus getting more mastery. And what I applied to it was one, experimentation was lighting up when I thought about the new field and the opportunity to keep learning there. I also thought about how my vision really includes this feeling, really the feeling of sparking new ideas with really supportive collaborators. And so this feeling of who I want to be around me, what we're doing together, that really, I hope, was able to listen to that and then realize that while a startup in the new field might be the next good opportunity for me, what I really needed to do was continue to lean into the leaders and the people around me and really kind of vote that way. So it wasn't obvious in terms of levels or field. I had to remind myself it's enriching my own experience in learning where I am now kind of outweighed the new shiny thing.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And application of values to, like you said, to these decisions is key, right? Because some of these decisions, like you said, have an impact on your career and your decisions as you go forward as well in moving up or laterally overall too, right? And I think a similar situation is trying to see, do I want to stay in my current job and make the if it's a difficult work situation and make it work, or look for a new job? And similarly, I'm sure there are a lot of people who have been stuck in a situation where they don't like their job or they want to approach a job search overall in a new way, right? So how do you advise to people like that? How should they use their values to find the best job for them?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that could be said about looking for a job that's the right fit. That's a whole other talk. What I'll say now is that one thing I tell folks, and I do myself, is write a criteria for your job search before you start any conversations. And I say that because talking with potential new teams can be very exciting. It's almost like dating. You can get really caught up in it. But that criteria, that stack rank, helps you decide in the moment, this option versus this option. That's one piece. And then the way that I see values coming into it is where there might be areas that, again, they're aspirational. If you want to lean into a very kind of commanding, role, there's different types of jobs that support that. If you want, if making a difference is important to you, then those are the kind of roles that you'll gravitate to. So, and then there's the basic, not so basic, but kind of true violations of your values. Where early in my career, I was working on a content property, and we were producing content that I thought really pushed a lot of bad stereotypes for teenage girls. It did not feel good to be in that and be a part of it. And so I left that team.
Wow. And that is a tough decision to make, right? To be able to understand that, why you're feeling that way, and what is the next thing to do to make sure that it doesn't happen again, right? I remember, I think you mentioned about aspirational role overall. I remember switching gears from consulting to industry based on values as well, and thinking about, do I want to stay in my dream career of consulting that I saw my sister grow while I was growing up, when I was in undergrad, and switch to industry or stay in there, right? And thinking through the values of, how, whether it aligns with my growth value of continuing to gain more value, knowledge or not, and as well as the vision of, mental health and physical well-being as well, overall. So definitely agree, there are a lot of decisions that can be made based on core value set overall. So please let us know in the chat as well. Do some of these scenarios resonate with you as well? and what are some of the decisions that you are facing, and how could values help you, overall align, those decisions to make the right decision, whether it is A versus B as well.
Yes, and definitely. We've got some potential questions you might be facing. And now hopefully you've got some rapid fire values that are in your mind. So tell us in the chat if you've seen some potential misalignment or some good news, really good alignment. And number 4, I'd like to cover today is how we make sure this sticks. So as I mentioned, going through your values and your vision, it's a snapshot, and there is a likelihood that it will evolve as you evolve. And so what I have found helpful is in the moment, writing down my commitments to say, I plan to live out this value in this way, and then telling my accountability partners about it. I have a quad of my accountability partners, and I talk every other week, and they know my values, they know my vision, and they can check me, right, when I'm not living up to them. So the other piece that I found helpful for me is this exercise, the time wallet relationship audit. And every 6 months or a year or so, I will put some time aside, set some time aside to look at where I'm spending my time. So for me, this looks like a Google Doc, a spreadsheet that has where I'm spending every hour, sleep, eat, people, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll also look at different buckets, going back to that vision board. How am I living to my values within each of those buckets, if they are important to me? So I look at my time, look at my wallet. Where am I spending my money? What am I investing in? What am I donating to? And is the phrase, put your money where your mouth is, am I living that or not? And then the last piece is the relationships. This is frankly, really tough area where relationships may evolve to the point where the people you have relationships with don't support your values anymore. That is a natural and painful part of our evolution. And so we have a kind of a question for you in the chat, and also a discussion about how this has manifested in our lives. And I'll talk about, I had a relationship. I was spending time with someone who, and this was not a romantic relationship. It was someone in my network, and I was feeling over time that my values were getting kind of punched down. So I had a new idea. I like to experiment, connect the dots, think about what could be, and it would get shot down. I would try something that would help someone else, and there wasn't a clear benefit to me, and it would get shot down. And I realized this is not healthy for me. And so it wasn't until I put these filters on, what was being violated, frankly, in terms of my values, that I said, I have to reduce the volume on this relationship and fill the gap and find others where I could have more of that values alignment with. So not easy to talk about, but a reality that we face.
Yeah, and please share it in the chat, how Rosa said, how have you shifted relationships in alignment with your values? Relationships you had to, you're still fostering because they really support your value system overall, or relationships you had to, unfortunately let go, or thinking of about it, as you move forward as well. And yes. Similarly, I think, Rosa, you mentioned about time and relationships. And one more piece I think you mentioned is the wallet piece. How can we think about the money expenses, or the time, and sort of goes with time as well, the investment that you're making in terms of, whether they're aligning with your values or not. And I think one question that resonates a lot with early to mid-career professional is, whether do I want to go to a business school versus continue to grow in my current career as well? And this is something that I definitely, I am still debating and deciding on a decision with. But this is, again, something that could be thought through values. Is it, if my value is growth related, learning related, should I just go with business school, or should I go with my existing career overall? Right?
Yes. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And you don't have an answer yet, but hopefully we can get to an answer together. So I will definitely reiterate that invitation in the chat. If you have something that you want to chat, hear others' perspective on, come to the interactive session and we'll talk it out. So Surbhi, yeah, we are at our key takeaways for each other and for our audience today. We'll take it away.
Yeah, and today we started with understanding how can we set up a vision of a 3 to 5 year vision for ourselves as a compass or a benchmark, and then go about identifying our values based on this vision, your happy, fulfilling, proud moments, as well as sad moments that we have had, and choosing those top 3 or 4 values, and being able to align our decisions based on our value system overall. And like we just recently talked about, how can we perform those regular checks to make sure we are continuing to live our aspirational self, or the self that we want to live as based on our core values, the time, wallet, community / relationship checks on our calendar, as well as on a periodic basis as well. So we leave you here with a quote here, about value system, how values act as a guide. And before we close out, Rosa, any closing thoughts, before we meet everyone in the interactive session and have those debates over values overall?
Just a big thank you to you for sparking this idea and being my collaborator. And really, parting thoughts are to start where you are, time box it, check in with others. You're not on this journey alone. And so we hope that we can use the interactive session to give more ideas on how to use values to make decision-making just a little bit easier.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.